UAP, Unidentified Anomalous Phenomenon. Are they extraterrestrial? Interdimensional? Time travelers in origin? Or are they simply a result of top-secret military projects? False flag alien invasion psyops? Drones? Or other human-made aircraft? Join the discussion now on UAP Crossfire.
Well, good evening, greatest audience on the planet, to another episode of UAP Crossfire with my three co-hosts, Chris DePerno, otherwise known as the Double Dog, Dan the Padre Carlson, and Decker the Silverback, which is like a double entendre nickname. You can see that he's really in a good mood about his double entendres. Yeah, well, that fell nice and flat. We'll just continue to move along. As always with the show, I try to end the show with the blessing, but I find it's more effective to start the show with the blessing, and the kind of the looks that I'm getting from some of my co-hosts, a blessing is in order. So, as always, God's peace that surpasses all knowledge and understanding. I think some of the things we'll talk about tonight might allude to that. On a very serious starting note, we extend deepest sympathies to our guest, Stephen Bradford, that was with us a week or so ago. His father, Ellis Bradford Sr., who was a fire chief, a private investigator, also a fire marshal investigator before that, and when I turn over to Decker in a few minutes, was a ufologist of some renown as well. He tragically passed away, and we're in condolence and support and prayers to Stephen, a new friend to Chris, Dan, and myself, and a longtime friend of Decker. Decker, you have some words about his dad?
Yes. Back in the 50s, down in Florida, there was a very famous UFO incident that involved, and I'm going now strictly on memory, but involved, I believe, some school children that saw this thing. And Stephen's father was one of the first there to witness this. Later on, it was chronicled by the likes of Donald Kehoe and others. But today, sadly, like so much in this field, it's long gone, long past, and very, very few people have any memory or record of it. But like so much, this is one of those the fields that just keep going on and on. But the history, if you take the time to do some research, I personally think it's very well worth your time. But there are some rich things in there that even resonate to this very day, Commander.
Fully agree. Why I'm always after you that we need to get some of those magazines put back into circulation, and bugging you for the interview. Padre, you have returned to us in wonderful color and form.
Well,
how are you tonight, sir?
I'm doing okay. I'm getting better every day. I want to thank everyone for your concerns and your prayers. Monday night,
I understand you got a get well card from the turkeys.
Yeah, they are glad that I have not been in the field. I think it's a conspiracy on their part. But no, I had some tense moments a week ago. Was rushed in the hospital, had to have some emergency surgery, but I am recovering. And I just want to say what a great bunch of guys you are. You all are very concerned, and we genuinely care for each other. And it's a blessing to be part of this team.
And when he says guys, he means our guardian angel, Amanda, who was in constant contact with me as we were talking with you. Yes. Amazingly, I was kind of bummed out that you didn't go with a local so that you could talk to me through the operation. But next time, maybe we'll have that experience.
I'll work on that.
But your lovely bride was keeping us informed. Devil Dog, how are you tonight, sir?
I'm doing great. First, it's great to see the Padre back, being all chipper that he is and stuff. That's good to have him back. It's always good to have him on the show. Give a little blessing to all of us and everything like that. But next, I want to say my condolences to Mr. Bradford. You know, it sounds like his father was a great man, and he studied the same thing that we studied. And you know, hopefully rest in peace, and condolences to the family, to a great man.
Well, it's the toughest duty that you do as a child is to bury your parents. So that is the tough, hard work that is there. Well, somewhat somber start, but we are uplifted to all be together. And we were kind of all over the place for setting up the show. So each one of us tonight is bringing a couple features, a couple things that are going on, and we're going to discuss them. And I saw this past week that the Tikaboo viewing area, which was once, well, it is public land near Area 51, going up towards that area, was closed off by the Bureau of Land Management. And the folks at the Area 51 resort were talking about it, and there was a lot of huff and puff about this. Now everyone knows Area 51, highly restricted area, a lot of classified work goes on there that we can say with absolute certainty what happens there. Most of us don't know. I would say that probably that's the mosaic there that's spread between us on there. That's like a view that's looking from horizon to horizon on it. And I believe these pictures were taken from Tikaboo. And that was the closest point. Now it's much further away. It's really almost impossible now to have any kind of direct view in there in a legal standpoint. I think the latest closest place is now going to be someplace in the neighborhood of 40 plus miles. So, gentlemen, I'm going to throw it out to you while we run through some pictures. What's your take on this?
Who would you like to start?
What do you think?
Well, who do you want to start? Me? I can
Yes,
start. Back in the mid-'90s, when my wife and I were publishing UFO magazine, there was an area close to Area 51 that had not been restricted. It was an open area, and a lot of people, and this is all in the aftermath of the Bob Lazar incident, the Bob Lazar story, that people used to hike up there and could literally look down into the site, Area 51. Now, one of the problems were, of course, at that time, and I don't know if they were still contracted by those people at Area 51, but the Wackenhut Security Corporation was providing outside security for that site. Matter of fact, I personally did a series of articles about Wackenhut and some of the things that they were doing then, which I'm sure didn't put me in any popularity contest with those people out there. But along about 1993, 94, BLM, Bureau of Land Management, in connection with, I guess, the Air Force, the CIA, whomever, took all that property in a giant land grab, which at the time created a tremendous amount of controversy. Now, once again, like so many things in this field, a lot of focus has left the site, Area 51. People don't nearly talk about it as much as they did 30 years ago. But just very recently, another land grab was made, which kind of makes me wonder why they didn't do it previously. But for whatever reason, they did it now. And this area is, I guess, for all intents and purposes, almost entirely roped off. So it's not something that I have, a lot of questions about. I think a lot of those questions are self-evident. But the bottom line is whatever they are doing out there, they want to do it in privacy. And by God, that's what they're doing.
So I'm going to ask you direct. Do you agree or disagree?
I'm a little bit conflicted. On the one hand, yes. I mean, I have very strong feelings about national security. We live in a very hostile world. Currently, I see it as a very hostile environment, and we must have security with those top secret projects they're working on. Now, on the other hand, there's a part of me that I somewhat resent the imperial way they went about this. I think there should have been some discussion about this in Congress. Our elected representatives, no matter how crappy and shitty they are, should have had some say about this. And they didn't.
What makes you think they didn't?
Well, I haven't heard a word about it. Have you?
Well, land management like that has been going on, and it's under the purview of the executive, but it's supported by the Congress, both houses. So
exactly,
I think that it was A-OK, because if it wasn't, they would have stopped it.
Well, would they have? They are our representatives. We,
right.
the
and
citizens,
it's our government.
Republic.
I'm not going to spar with you on this. I understand the confliction, but my point is, we sell land to the Chinese, the PRC, next to Air Force bases and other military installations, and we're all pissed off about it. We're all running around. Who was the ninny? Who was the idiot that allowed that to happen? And they're setting up cameras and they're setting up surveillance.
I'd love to know. Do you? Do you know who it was?
Yeah, it was lots of local people, local state governments, sometimes in some cases federal, or it was sale of farmland that happens to surround most of these bases. And we have no check on that. And then we are all puffed up and upset that the PRC is set up camp off our sensitive bases. All right, quickly, switching over to Chris. Chris, your thoughts on this, please.
Well, first of all, Tikaboo Peak has always been infamous to watch Area 51. We all know that from years ago. But I have to agree with Don in saying that I don't see a problem with them land grabbing this. I think, look, there's secrets that should be kept secret. And obviously from our enemies. We're in a Cold War with China. And if people don't believe that, then, hell, you got to wake up. People got to wake up. We just arrested a mayor in California that was a Chinese spy. A mayor.
I thought it was a enhancement on her resume in California. We'll get to Don on that, on comment on that.
But at least she wasn't an oyster farmer.
Correct.
No, but the thing is, now we know that
a third rank oyster farmer, if you get my drift.
Yeah. I guess I'm a little fired up about this because we have seen, like you said, the Chinese setting up surveillances and stuff. Why haven't we grabbed that land back? Why haven't we said, hey, this is garbage. We're not going to do this bullshit anymore with this. You know what happens is the Chinese people come to these farms right next to the place. They come with a suitcase of cash and they say, hey, we want to buy your land. And here's $5 million. Here's $6 million. They're not buying it cheap. They're throwing godly money at these places. Now we found the Chinese on military bases because they decided to go take a stroll on military bases. We find representatives sleeping with Chinese spies. They become chauffeurs for some of our representatives, and now we got them as elected officials. So
I guess the next thing you're going to complain about is when they fly their model drones and model airplanes around our bases. You're like the fun police. You're like, no, none of that.
No, I think that's when you got to say, hey, enough's enough. I say enough's enough now. So do you know what? And here's the other thing about Congress. Yeah, Congress probably had to say, but come on, give me a break. Congress couldn't decide what toilet paper to put in the men's room. I mean, let's face it.
That's a decision that they're not allowed to make. Adults have to make that decision, but we'll keep moving on that. Back to Area 51. So you're kind of in the camp that access should be controlled and easy viewing into there is restricted.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it should be controlled. I think it should be restricted. And I think some secrets should be kept secret.
Padre, welcome back.
Thank you. BLM things are pretty pretty on the forefront here where I live.
You better
I'm just
believe
a
it.
few miles from BLM land. We appreciate the recreational opportunities that it affords. Over the BLM lands just north of here is where the B-1 bombers out of Ellsworth Air Force Base train there and in southeast Montana doing low-level runs. And occasionally you'll be out antelope hunting and you'll see one come over at treetop height, which is exciting. But the ranchers in this part of the world have leases of BLM land. We saw a few years back when one of those was upset because the federal government was kicking his family off land that they had leased for decades within the family, and that became an armed standoff. So tensions run high in the West whenever anything's done with BLM land. That said, there are many mountain peaks in that area. I was looking at it earlier today on Google Earth. There are many hiking trails. I don't know that all of them afford a straight line of visibility there, but this is part of the basin and range area of central Montana with no shortage of places for those who want scenic outlooks. I know for the young people from Vegas to go on their Friday and Saturday nights consuming adult beverages and exploring alien concepts of their own. But I think that what we're looking at here is the necessary closure of an area that, due to technology, might be more vulnerable. The photographic capabilities that we have seen over the last several years with the downsizing and the digitizing and the ability of very small cameras to take video and still pictures at very long distances with tremendous clarity means that there is the potential for a foreign adversary or someone affiliated with one to go up there and see something that they shouldn't. I had another idea, and I'll bounce this off you guys, that might this be tied to disclosure in some way? If they are preparing to introduce us to otherworldly entities, they might want to have some run-throughs or some introductory place to meet, and ostensibly that's been Area 51 for a while, and they just don't want anybody pulling back the curtain before it's time. What do you think about that idea?
Well, Decker, I'll let you jump on that for a response. What do you think?
I certainly would not discount that, Padre. That would, in many ways, I think, make a tremendous amount of sense as to whether the people in charge, which are a very large part of the legacy program going back at least to the Roswell incident in 1947, I don't know how amenable they would be to that idea, but it certainly is not something that I would discount. You possibly very well could be onto something.
Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, we've been taking pictures at Tikaboo Peak for years, and they've really haven't stopped it until now. So, is it coincide with all this talk about disclosure and, a speech is going to come out and maybe they're going to show us something? Can't rule it out. It's just that we've probably been flying stuff there that shouldn't have been seen for years, yet we never closed it off until now. So this is kind of a strange thing that's going on with Tikaboo Peak and to talk about disclosure. So Padre, you may be onto something.
And maybe one other thing here, if I may, and that is that since April 20th, there have been more than 200 small earthquakes in central and western Montana. This is an area that generally is tectonically quiet. The most active area has been a bit farther north than Tikaboo Peak, but might this be indicative of testing some new weaponry underground? I wonder, because 200 in an area that's normally quiet, most of them in that 2 to 3 on the Richter scale. The strongest was, I think, 5. But might they be ready to roll out some new weaponry that they might need in Iran?
Padre, let me ask you, isn't that area an area filled with vast lava fields?
Well, it's an area that has been tectonically quiet, meaning there aren't any major faults through there. I'm not aware that there's any volcanic activity there.
Yeah, usually that's west of the Rockies. East of the
Right.
Rockies doesn't seem to have the volcanic activity.
Now, to the east, of course, you have the Sierras and Mount Shasta and some of those others that are volcanic. And once you get closer to the California border, you have that. But out there in the desert, it's pretty barren, up and down with ridges and basins. And it's generally quiet unless you're detonating something underground, which makes me wonder.
So many years back, when I was working, I was in the Air Force going through training. One of the areas that we spent a lot of time at had the testing for nukes, but we weren't testing nukes the way you think. What they had done and what they had completed to do was they were doing detonations using conventional weapons and with measuring devices underground to simulate what the computers were saying would be the yield of the weapon when it went off in some scalable factor. And why they were doing that was that they did not want to actually detonate any nukes. They wanted to be able to easily blow things up below ground, measure that, and then go back to the computers. Now, I am talking the Stone Age in comparison to where we are now computer-wise when that was going on. It was very intensive work. I mean, it would take, in some cases, months to set up the field and the test to do that. I suspect that might be some of the things that you're talking about, Padre, is yield testing or shape testing to try to come up with activities. And it wouldn't surprise me if the solution, as you said, to Iran is, well, if we, I think the Iranians said it today, they want to mix up their refined materials. Maybe we'll help them mix up their refined materials with super bunker busters that will hit the area and cause more upheaval and sink further into the ground and make it impossible to either get at it or make it worthwhile to get in there with that low yield radioactivity. It's just basically spread the dust. But back to this thing with Groom Lake, Tikaboo. Don, one of the things you were talking about in the beginning, that one of those first major grabs took a family ranch that was not federal property. Eminent domain is how it was taken. Part of the claim was that they needed it for national security. The other part was the security risk of people being there and the safety risk because of all the live weapons work that goes on there and the intensity of the training that goes on. There's a lot of live fire activity that goes on, as well as some of the most incredible digitized warfare in the world happens. It was pioneered out of Nellis and pioneered on those ranges where you can very accurately simulate different types of engagements and go back and measure them and see who wins, who dies, and obviously not have to expend any firepower. So I remember that case because the family was fighting for certain things back out of this kind of an eminent domain kind of clause that they exercised on this. Like you, like all of you, I am stone hard on this, that we need to protect our secrets and to protect our activity. And I'm going to go one alongside the disclosure thing. With the F-47 and the B-21 coming out, both those aircraft, and the aircraft or the prototypes that were flown before this, there's probably an acceleration going on. We know that the discussion on production numbers of how many B-21s are going to have I don't think they want to give anything away. I don't think they want to give anything away to foreign powers, not just the PRC, but they are my favorite knuckleheads that I like to bang on the side of the head with, because I think they're the most dangerous people on the planet with their intent of what they want to do. And then when things go sideways for them, I'm really worried about them. That said, we have all the other nations in the world that are looking for an easy leg up. I remember in the 80s and 90s the amount of security that we were told about our NATO members who were spying on us. I won't go by country, but they were spying on us. They would spy on our business people when they came in. The CIA used to brief people all the time. Do not leave the papers. Don't put them in. Don't put them in the hotel safe. That's like giving them the library, you know. And these guys would show up. You know, they check their stuff in. They think they had some kind of security, and you know, as soon as they were dropping it off, it was opened up, and there were members of the security services taking pictures and going through the material. So, and in some cases, with that known, I think a lot of false information is put out. But I think some of the things that are coming out system-wise, and although I'll go pedestrian here and say B-21 and F-47 and those kinds of things, I think there may be some other stuff connected with our favorite topics around Tic Tac and others that might be coming out as part of disclosure or running a parallel to disclosure. And that may be very upsetting to the world balance as it is. Right now, the way things are, right now our petro is under control, all this ties in. I don't think any of this is by accident. I don't think the rollout of disclosure and the things that are coming out, as Don said when him and I were talking back and forth email-wise, you know, this thing with no guidance, but you can't really win in that one, right? If the government came out and said this, and this, we don't know what it is, this, and this, we think is man-made, we would all be yelling, you know, they're lying to us. And then they come out and say, okay, here, you look at it, make up your own minds. Well, why'd you do that? Nothing's going to make people happy. This is just, it's gone on too long. But I think that there may be some other very earth shifting kind of events coming up, all connected around this, all connected what was going on with us in the Mideast. And Area 51 is always an intriguing place to me. I've had some adventures many, many years back early in my career. I've had friends that have made boo-boo mistakes. I think I shared the story with all of you about the F-111, the fighter that made the emergency landing on there. And the difference was between crashing or flying another 2 to 4 minutes to get back to Nellis. That's how fast the plane was going. And when they landed, they were met, you know, their aircraft was met. They were told to just shut down. They were down to one engine, shut down the other engine. They stayed on the runway. The vehicles came out, bright lights in their eyes. They were taken out and they were put into a bread box van, no windows. And they drove all the way back to Nellis, a couple hours. No one talked to them. They were isolated the whole time. They were put in isolation. They were debriefed. And then they were sent home. The plane was flown back by no one that was part of the squadron or the wing. So somebody that they had on staff was able to go pick that plane up after the repairs are made. The guys that brought the materials up to change the engine out had the same kind of treatment going up. They were brought to a place that they never saw how they drove in. They never saw how they drove out. And those kinds of stories are legendary. They're legendary all around that because of security. Now, what throws me off is you have that level of security for the people that are in uniform, but you have public viewing places that you didn't control. And let's be honest, they've got ground sensors. They had Wackenhut. They have some other contractor that's doing the same role that them. Then you have the next tier of military security that's around there, Air Force security forces that are around there. There are places where the signs are up, deadly force can be used to keep you from going any further. And every now and then, what happens up on the other peaks further up, over by Tonopah? They'll be up there and they'll see an F-117 that was supposed to be long retired flying during the day down the valley, headed back to Nellis. And people are snapping pictures up of it. I got to tell you, I don't think that's by accident. I think that that's a lot of times being played. I think a lot of this is being played. And now I think the chips are up on the table pretty high. That's shutting access down there. And one other thing, if you have a powerful enough drone and you get up on that peak, and you're up there, and you do the spider in the hole routine long enough, and then you pop up and you fire that in, and it goes in there and causes any kind of disruption or damage to Area 51. That range is not so far, given what we have seen in the last 10 years in offensive UAS activity. I think that may be another part of it. I think that may have been the final part. With all that said, thank you, gentlemen. I'm always amazed about Area 51, one of the most intriguing places in the world. Tony Levere from Lockheed, when he was working on the U-2, that's where they picked that spot. He flew up there on his own. It was kind of atomic energy land because of some of the stuff. And he said, this is the place that we need to test the U-2. And that's how it started. With that, Padre, kind of getting into your pew, no pun intended. But what's all this thing about the pastors getting the special brief?
Well, you may have heard in the news stories about so-called government officials meeting with select groups of pastors and briefing them on various elements of UAP disclosure so that they could better prepare their fellowships for potentially disruptive information. Well, as we find out, you see that oftentimes, this is the case, the situation is exaggerated and not entirely correct.
This is my shock face. That's Decker's shock. Look at Decker's face. The two of us, we're twins. We're so shocked.
Yes, and that knowing smirk from Chris. Well, in any case, you see the media making it sound like pastors are getting special briefings. What this was, it was a group of retired or former government employees who claimed to have inside knowledge of the UAP issue. And they were concerned because they were believers, they were Christians, and they had personal concerns about how congregations might take news that we were being visited by non-human intelligences. And so they said that they would meet with anybody who, was a pastor. They reached out to a group that met in the Tennessee woods, and they reportedly were shown images of entities that were not human. None of the pastors denied their faith afterwards. None of them, decided to throw down the cloth and go fishing till Jesus comes. They instead looked at it with some were somewhat alarmed. We were told that these were not the typical types of non-human intelligence entities by the pastors who were there. They described some as more of almost like the Slender Man, translucent, very tall, very spindly entities. One reportedly had tentacles and was almost a squid-like entity. But then again, you are in the woods being shown pictures of things that you don't understand with a group of your peers. That's me at 13. Okay. I mean, it's the kind of thing that happens when people have certain concerns and they come forward and here's my takeaway from this. Kudos to those who were concerned. I mean, the Bible says that we're supposed to have concern for everyone. There is no doubt that this meeting in Tennessee took place. We don't know how many other meetings there have been. I will say that if one of these former operators is open to talking to me, you can reach out at our UAP Crossfire email address, and I'll be happy to get hold of you. Or actually, you could probably find me a lot easier using your sources and methods. But the thing of it is, the pastors who left said, okay, this really doesn't give any basis for anyone to have a crisis of faith. Because after all, the Bible is a book, or actually a collection of books, from front to back about humanity being visited by non-human intelligences. Some are angels, some are demons. One is the Son of God, and in each of these instances, there is a lesson for us to learn as people. So I have believed that there are non-human intelligences, and I think it's important for us also to understand that the language used in these meetings was about non-human intelligences, more of an interdimensional than interstellar place from whence they came. And that certainly lines up with Scripture. And one need only to look at the Deuteronomy 32 worldview put forth by Michael Heiser many years ago, and people like L.A. Mazzulli, Tim Alberino, Gary Wayne, people who have written extensively about the role that they think these non-human intelligences are going to have in the end times. And that's something else that kind of dovetails with that. The whole end times area of American Christendom right now is absolutely giddy and beside itself, pointing at everything and saying, see, 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 see. And okay, good. Jesus has not notified me personally of his date and time of return, but I would say that certainly there are some indicators, birth pangs, if you will, and we should always be ready. We don't know. I mean, we could be hit by a bus tomorrow. We could have a gallbladder attack and have to go in and have surgery. We could have, any one of a number of things that could cut our life short. We just always need to be ready to meet our Maker. And I am concerned at how uptight and excited and irrational some people in the community of faith have become. But that is my report as to what happened. It was not everything that the headlines implied.
Well, there's a first time for everything.
Well,
That the headlines don't match the real story.
oh,
right.
yeah.
And I'm also going to say this on air. That was a really nice little metaphor illusion that you put there, that you're not going to go fishing waiting for Jesus. I completely pick up what you were. I stepped all over what you were laying down there. Okay. And we'll talk offline about that. Okay.
Yes.
Decker, your thoughts on this with the pastors and the meetings in the woods and.
Okay, I go pretty deep on this. Number one, religion. All religions. Doesn't matter whether you're talking ancient Sumeria, the Roman Empire after the Emperor Constantine, which adopted Christianity, all the way up to today's little sects here, there, and everywhere. It's always been about one thing. Religion is a control mechanism. It's always been a control mechanism. It's been a control mechanism by, and I'm just going to use this, it may not be the exact correct word, but the elites overseeing the broad masses. Now, with that being said, our Christian Bible, and many may not be aware of this, because along with being a control mechanism, in many cases, it's also been, and I don't necessarily mean this in a negative way, but it's been a brainwashing process. I've seen this many, many, many times over my life in regular coordinated religious organizations. Now, the thing that most people are not aware of, our Bible, the Christian Bible, such as it is today, missing roughly 20 books that were arbitrarily pulled out and thrown away because it didn't meet the right criteria. These books give a much broader historical picture of what many of the early church writers were talking about. And where did those writings originally emerge from? Mesopotamia, ancient Sumeria. Abraham, the father of the Hebrew nation, originally came out of the city of Ur in the Chaldees, which was a Mesopotamian city. Okay. The story of Noah and the ark and the global flood. And there was apparently some kind of global flood. The Sumerians wrote about that millennia before the Old Testament. Now, what does all this mean? It means that we truly today, most truly today, do not have a broad spectrum picture where all of this came from. Now, one of the most insidious books, in my opinion, that have been discarded by the early church fathers was the book of Enoch. Now, if you go to the first chapter, or to the first books in the Bible, Genesis, and you go to chapter 6, about verses 1 through 4, you're going to read that the sons of God looked down upon the earth, observed the daughters of man, found them very appealing, and basically the boys got together and said, hey, let's go down and snatch some of those pretties up, which they did. Now, this is Genesis. Enoch is much more specific about what happened and why that was removed from the Bible. And, for example, the early Roman Catholic Church did not want their flocks reading the gospel because, God, if they did that, possibly, you hear my dog over there, they would possibly have their own ideas. The priests, the priestly class, were the ones that bestowed the biblical knowledge upon them. Now, this was another control mechanism. So when you get right down to the very bottom line, we have a very volatile thing sitting in our midst. Now, not to go on too much longer, but back in the mid-90s, Vicki and I did an issue of UFO magazine talking about that very thing, talking about early humanity. Where do we come from? Because by all accounts, we were designed. Now, whether the human being, Homo sapiens sapien, was designed by the Lord God on high or somebody else was the question. The theme was called Darwin's Black Box, okay? And at the time, that created one tremendously controversial issue of the magazine, which I happen to be very proud of. But the bottom line is, could that be one of the core secrets? Remember, my paper on disclosure, a secreted core secret surrounded by an SAP. Could it be that it's been proven that extraterrestrials, or God, who knows, maybe interdimensionals, designed the human being? Now that could be an explosive issue if it were ever revealed. Gentlemen, I await your comments.
Well, Padre, you're going to jump in here. Hold 1 second. I just wanted your take there, Don, on about the pastors, what they saw. But
yeah,
we went deep dive. No, I got it. We went deep dive. Padre, go ahead and jump in.
Okay. Obviously, I have profound disagreement with some of the things that Don said. We can go a couple ways here, guys. I can do a point-by-point rebuttal, or if we want to just keep it focused on the UAP thing, what's your pleasure?
Well, let's try to do both. because I don't want to burn the entire remaining part of this hour going back and forth on this.
I'm so confused.
Well, we won't
Okay,
call
see
you
me
at all,
after
Chris.
class.
We'll save you for later. Go ahead, Dodger.
So at no point was Enoch in the Bible and pulled out of the Bible. The book of Enoch was written, so far as we can tell, in the intertestamental period between 400 BC and the birth of our Lord. And there are some parts that may have been older than that, but as you read it, which I have, you'll find that certain aspects don't match up in terms of language and such and such. That said, there are a lot of very helpful and interesting things in the book of Enoch. But it did not even make the Apocrypha in the Catholic and the Orthodox Bibles. The only branch of Christianity that has it in and classifies it as sacred is the Ethiopian Church, which is very old indeed. Now, this particular book wasn't just yanked out willy-nilly. There was serious debate, and you had some heavy hitters in the first century, Arianus and also Origen and others who lobbied vociferously to put it in. Why? Because both the Apostle Peter and Jude, the brother of our Lord, quote from it in their writings in the New Testament. But that said, yes, it does tell the tale of the Watchers. The Watchers were 200 angels that looked upon the earth and were in charge, we theorize, in the administration of the earth along with humanity. There are so many lores and side stories here, but to make things brief, these Watchers rebelled, took human females themselves, as Don said, and they produced a race of beings called the Nephilim, which were giants. And if you read the extra biblical texts, you see that these were huge entities, that they were extremely violent, extremely selfish, and they ultimately were going to destroy humanity from the planet. And therein is the objective. We are in the middle of a war right now between the forces of darkness, led by Satan and his rebellious angels, and our Lord and those who he has called into his service, the Christians. And this battle's been going back and forth for centuries. Now, when Don says religion is a control mechanism, boy, I really hurt, Don, when you say that. When I stand in front of my fellowship, I'm looking at people that I love and I want to help, and there is no desire in my heart to control them in any way. And I'm just one pastor of many who feel that way. That doesn't mean that larger denominations, Catholicism, Lutheranism, Methodism, cannot be corrupted by people because they're made up of people, and people are flawed, and people make poor choices and poor decisions. And yes, religion, all religions, have been abused by a few. But the objective of religion isn't to control and manipulate people, my friend. It's to provide hope, to provide a sense of belonging to the Lord God who made us, to be part of a fellowship of like-minded brothers and sisters to work for the good of our communities. And to simply write it off as a control mechanism does a grave disservice.
No, lest you think I deny God. I do not.
No, I know you don't. I know you don't.
I do not deny God. God is.
Thank God, I didn't want to think of you as a heathen.
Well, at least
No,
not on
he's
that
not
point.
a heathen.
Not on that point.
No, but you know, part of the problem, and I think you're going to have to admit to this, part of the problem is the fact of the translations. Now, there are sects of people in this country, from my part of the world, back on the East Coast, the Amish, all right, which are strict, total pacifists.
Mhm.
All right. They disavow any type of violence whatsoever. As a matter of fact, as a small child, I can remember my grandfather telling me, because back during the pre-revolutionary and Revolutionary War times, the area we lived in had been heavily attacked by not only Native Americans, British regulars, British militia, those types of things, all right, during the Revolutionary War. The Amish would not defend themselves. They would allow the Native Americans, if they were on an attack, to come in and massacre them. Nobody would lift a finger to try to fight back. So where did that come from? Well, I think in a large part from the Ten Commandments, which we were taught, I was taught as a child, that said, thou shalt not kill, which turns out it was a mistranslation from the Hebrew to the Greek. It actually said, thou shalt not murder. And there's a hell of a difference between murder and self-defense.
Another great pun, I might add, or allusion. Hell of a difference. I'm trying to keep score.
Oh, okay. All right. So do you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that if we're honest, we have to look at how translation has progressed and how today we have some of the finest translations ever. I mean, when you spoke of the Book of Enoch, the Book of Enoch had faded into obscurity until it was discovered by an archaeological researcher in Ethiopia named Bruce in, I think it was 1873. So we've only had a good look at the full book for a couple of hundred years. And the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls in 1947 through 1952 in the caves there, overlooking the Dead Sea, has provided us with tremendous linguistic insights. And that's why we have translations today, like the New King James Version, which has taken all of these things into consideration, like the English Standard Version, like the Legacy Standard Bible, like the Christian Contemporary English Bible. These are all translations. And if anyone wants more information about them, they can contact me via the email of UAP Crossfire at gmail.com, and I'll be happy to get back with you. But no, Don, I must say, to my shame, yes, people have manipulated those who are religious for a long time, because the people who are religious are often the downtrodden, the people who are seeking, the people who've had a rough go of life, and they're looking for some hope, and so they can be easily manipulated. But for the people of faith, once they come to faith and they see the wisdom of the scriptures, the Bible is self-referencing in it 66,000 times. Written by 40 guides over a period of 1,500 years. It was the world's first hyperlinked document before there was hyperlinking even known to man. It's a tremendous collection of books, and the decision as to what goes in them was not taken lightly at all by the men who did it. And for those who object to the exclusion of certain books, good news, many of them are available thanks to recovered parchments, and you can still go read them if you want to and make your own decision, like the UAP info dump. It's out there. Here, take it and make your own mind up and decide, okay, well, what is this? I've read some of these books. You go along and say, oh, that's in the Bible, that's in the Bible. And then they make some obscure statement. You just go, whoa, did not see that coming. And so it's obvious why that wasn't in the Bible. You don't have a lion and a leopard and a cheetah come walking up to you on a path and start espousing scripture to you. If a book is talking about that, I'm thinking, no, it just doesn't fit the profile of an apostle's writing.
Okay, with all that said, I'm taking control back of the show.
Okay.
We're going to return more to the UAP Crossfire kind of element here. And Chris, if you would take us to the top of this first break, could you just give me straight up answer to this question? What was your take on the pastors in the woods looking at pictures from somebody who may be in the government? What your thought was?
I got to tell you, I was about ready to go get some popcorn and a beer, because I go, this is like watching Mike Tyson and Larry Holmes fighting. I mean, let's get it on both of these guys. All right. Here's my take on it. Look, everything gets exaggerated nowadays. You get on the internet and you got something simple. Hey, a bunch of pastors getting together. What do you think about this? There's going to be disclosure. Here, we got a few pictures. We got this and stuff like that. What happens next? I watched the thing where they had the pastors all in white suits coming down angelically from a cable, ladies saying, "We're here, we're here." And I'm like,
It's all the same thing.
There could be a couple of guys in the woods, a few pastors in the woods say, "Hey, this might come out. What are we going to talk to our people about?" But obviously the internet blows it up. Now I will tell you, it's not just the internet people. You got, as this comes out, you got Congress people, politicians talking about it. And I'm glad you kind of mentioned this spiritual thing, Padre. And I don't want to get off the thing, but this kind of aligns with the pastors. Amanda, you want to play that clip, clip 4, Invasion with Bobart?
Creator of the universe. He's never not going to create. So it's always been something in my mind to say, well, how can we be the only ones? Like, God's not going to stop creating just with us. But the more I look into this, the more I see the Old Testament and what was told to us there of fallen angels and Nephilim. I mean, this is in the Bible. There's nothing that says that fallen angels, that Nephilim just disappeared. And so I believe that this could be an aspect of it. There are things that we have seen that could resemble portals. And, we serve an infinite God, a God of the universe. And to say that this is the only realm, is ignorant. And, so what I've seen, I wouldn't, put it as, Marvin the Martian kind of thing. But I do believe that this is more spiritual. And if you really want to go there, demonic.
So getting back to your question, Cobra, I think the pastors had to have a briefing, but also said, how do we be together on this and not talk about different separate things? Because as you can see, people are jumping on the bandwagon whenever you hear something. And that's my take.
I'm really happy that the representative Bopart was doing that interview in a car. That speaks so many miles of class. I don't know even where to start. I don't even know where to start with that part. Hold on. My bottom line on this is I'm glad the pastors got together, but I smell set up from the get-go. This was down in the deep south, down the Bible Belt. This nonsense off into the woods. The people that had this and had the pictures, not a lot of it. And then it goes out, and it goes out in different versions to the internet. AI has grabbed it. AI's created stuff based on it. It's repeating on itself. I'll tell you what I'm standing by for. And I'm glad that the Padre was able to analyze it and tell me that we didn't have a whole bunch of people renouncing their faith or throwing their princely garbs down and saying that, it's all over and it's done. There's a really famous Simpsons episode where that happens, where they believe this, and it's a really funny little thing to watch. I'm glad that happened. I want to know, and I want to be ready for the group in California of religious people that are brought up to the hillside and have the same kind of discussion and what's going to come out from them. UAP Crossfire, folks, we're at our break. We'll see you on the flip side. And on the flip side, we'll start with Decker, who had submitted 2 very interesting stories. Decker will grab us the start.
Don't drink the Kool-Aid.
Unless it's been touched. Unless it's ecumenical Kool-Aid. See you on the other side.
Over 240 million calls are made annually to 911. Fire, EMS, and police are then met with the same problem. The address of the residence or location is not sufficiently marked for responders to find it quickly during an emergency. That delay can mean the difference between life or death to you or your loved ones. When activated, the Locator 911 bulb converts to a strobing, color-changing beacon, identifying the exact location. Go to fast911help.com now to purchase your bulb today. fast911help.com.
Welcome back to UAP Crossfire. Don, please take us out on the first part of the second hour with your submissions.
Okay. Well, I submitted. The question was from Commander Cobra, who said he was going to take the lead on tonight's broadcast.
And
That
he completely
every
lost the
host,
command, but go ahead.
every host come up with one or two topics that they think are worthwhile kicking around the show on tonight's program. So anyway, I went down through my records and I came across two things that I thought were worthy. Number one was an essay written by a gentleman by the name of Gus Russo, who was asked by another fellow to do basically a surmise of the government, the American government, and its association and fascination and revulsion of the UFO UAP topic. Now, Russo was a very good person to do this. He was a writer, a journalist, a TV documentarian, an investigator. He took on such things as the Italian mafia in the United States and other things. And when he began looking at the psychotic, and I will say psychotic, persona of the American government with UFOs, he was fascinated. And jumping into this thing, he basically ended up coming up with what I thought were some very solid conclusions. Number one, and I'm just going to break these down very quickly. Number one, the disinformation element to UFOs throughout the last 8 decades, because the US government, and I don't mean a totalitarian government entity, I'm talking about elements of the government, the Department of Energy, the Central Intelligence Agency, the Defense Intelligence Establishment, other federal groupings that have one way, the FBI, that have been one way or another involved in this throughout the years. And they're almost continuous deception and lying about their association and affiliation. The most glaring example for me today is the United States Air Force. Starting in 2017, when this topic, almost 10 years ago now, 9 years ago, blew back into the public arena, all right, here we were with people like the United States Navy coming forward, seemingly after years of denial, years of deception, they suddenly came pretty clean. Now, that was a shock for me personally. I've been following this professionally since 1988. The fact that there are players still today out in the field, acknowledged liars, former government agents, former people like Richard Doty, a guy that's got oh my God, talk about a black veneer, all right, over this field. Someone that's been involved in some of the biggest hoaxes that have been around in decades. The Serpo thing, for example. Doty was one of the people mentioned. He was also the reason that Bill Moore, formerly one of the bright shining stars in the UFO field back in the 80s, imploded before hundreds of the faithful, mostly MUFON in Las Vegas in 1989, by admitting he had worked hand in glove with government agents to deceive the public. And one person, an example, a guy which we really should do a show on sometime, Paul Benowitz, a civilian scientist that was literally driven into an insane asylum. And I put most of that on Richard Doty. Now, Doty had been in the OSI, the Air Force Office of Special Investigations. He had been working in Europe during the Cold War. He had been involved in this, apparently sanctioned by higher authority to do what he did. The reason being, Benowitz had inadvertently stumbled over what appeared to be an extraordinarily top secret program that the Air Force was carrying on back in the early 80s. Now, this guy, I knew Benowitz. I knew him slightly. I talked to him shortly before he died, and I could tell this was a broken man. They broke him down. In one rather infamous incident with me that happened back in the very late 80s, very early 90s, after Bill Moore publicly acknowledged that he had worked with government spooks, in part to disinform Benowitz. And incidentally, he took no accountability for this at all, which I got to say at the time, I was very upset about that because he was part and parcel, a big part of what happened to Paul Benowitz. We used to meet every 4 to 6 weeks when I was at UFO Magazine. We would meet for brunch. Now, knowing more, knowing what he did, who he worked with in part, not everybody, but I knew who some of them were. Moore had reported back to these people on personalities in the UFO field. And I knew damned well he was reporting back to his handlers on Vicky and I. I know it, okay? It went without saying. And we wanted to know, excuse me, what Moore had been up to. So anyway, we would meet. And in this one breakfast that I was having with him, I was probing him about Benowitz. And he told me at one time he met with Paul because he had been friends with Paul. And this was another thing that got under my skin to a very deep level. How can you be a friend with someone, a true friend, and then stick him in the back, which is what, in my opinion, Moore did. So, at any rate, he said, I sat there, and in a 45-minute period, now think about this. Think about what this would take. In a 45-minute period sitting with Paul, I watched him light and extinguish 29 cigarettes. Benowitz obviously was a smoker, but he would light one, smoke it a while, put it out, grab another one, light it, smoke it a while, put it out. 29 cigarettes in 45 minutes. To me, this was just unconscionable. So at any rate, these guys play hard. Well, Russo detailed this in quite a few areas, all right? It's really well worth the read if you're interested in how this works. And we can make it available for you if you contact us, if you're interested. Now, the other thing that I submitted was an interview. I was interviewed on Coast to Coast Radio, formerly Art Bell Show, by George Knapp. Now, George, of course, an investigative journalist from KLAS, Television 8, in Las Vegas, the guy that broke the Bob Lazar Area 51 S4 story, a longtime investigator of the UFO phenomenon, and before UFOs, other things, spies, lies, and videotape in Las Vegas, the mob. George hit it all at one point or another. And we had become friends over the years. Anyway, he gave me a call, said, I'd like to have you come on Coast to Coast, right after Bobcat Goldthwait, who was talking about Bigfoot. Now, they called me up, and I went on the air with George. We hit a lot of topics. Some of the topics, he wanted to know if I had ever had any association with the Bigfoot phenomenon. And I did in a very small degree, okay? It was never a passion of mine. I never really went after cryptids at that time. And Bigfoot was certainly considered a cryptid. I did give him one story that I've talked about on this show before, about a woman living in with her husband on a small farm in Ohio. Her husband had a day job, and one morning he had breakfast, went off to his regular job, and she was in the kitchen cleaning dishes when she saw what appeared to be a Bigfoot-type creature walking out of the woods right behind their fence they had around their house. The creature, according to this report, which incidentally was a MUFON investigation, walked through her yard, up onto her porch. She, like a lot of farmers, okay, had a firearm close by, had a shotgun, as a matter of fact. She saw this creature, and you can imagine if it were you early in the morning, and you're in the kitchen working on dishes, and you see this thing come out of the woods up onto your porch. She stepped out onto the porch with the shotgun. I have to say, a very ballsy lady, and let him have it. Boom. This thing in the report exploded into a brilliant flash of light and was gone. That was basically my Bigfoot story. But we had other things. And one of the very big things at that time was government interference in journalists and basically tightening down on the First Amendment. This was under the Obama administration. Journalists who were sanctioned, even imprisoned, okay? We were talking about that, and a lot of that came and flowed from the Patriot Act after 2001. That creeping ladder of increasing, well, what do you want to call it? Totalitarianism, I suppose. But we hit a number of other subjects. And I got to say, I had a thought about that later. And my thought was, especially when I re-examined this before I sent it out, how much effect, and this is something I'm very interested in you gentlemen addressing, does something like that have on the field overall? Now, I'm somebody that's been banging around this field for a very long time. Closing in, not quite, but almost 40 years I've been involved in this. How much effect, how much positive effect, or conversely, how much negative effect do things like these interviews actually cause in the field? Or are they just superfluous? Oh, gee, I'm not doing anything tonight. I know this radio or podcast is on. I think I'll listen to it for an hour or so, and then off to bed. Is that all it means, or is there perhaps more?
That's something a pastor asks after a sermon every Sunday. Or, yeah, how much of it hit home? How much of it landed? How much of it's going to bear fruit? I think that we do what we do, and I can't speak for everybody, but because I have an interest in this and I have a desire to know, and I want to find the answers. And we have a better opportunity now with the technologies available in various platforms that I think we've never had a better environment in which to do it. And I'm, talking about somebody whose computer was hacked into a couple weeks ago and kicked me off the show. But I think that we are at a point with UAP and disclosure where they're trying to control, but they're not going to be able to. The crack in the dam is getting bigger every day. Eric Burleson was on Fox News today saying that now the administration is planning to release a tranche of this stuff every 2 weeks. So about the still wiping our mouth on the feast of stuff that came out from this last release. Another one is going to be coming. And ultimately, today was a Tim Burchett said that there's some stuff that could truly alter the direction of Earth. And if that is the case, and he was talking about the energy sources that drive these things. If that's the case, we have to be after it, and we also have to, as pseudo leaders or whatever, people who are known in this community, be ready to help people stay calm, keep a level head, not get carried away, and try to decipher what's truth and what's lie. I mean, that's the best.
Well, Pastor, let me ask you this, because this is something that I have suspected with the initial data dump. Okay. They suddenly dump all this information in our laps. And hey, let's be honest, some of it we've seen before. This stuff was not all brand new.
Right.
And if you get right down to it, what earth-shattering information was released? I suspect that in part, this is to drown the public in data. Drown it. There's so much there. What in the heck do you do with it? And noticeably, the government, the powers that be, have said almost nil about any of this. And still to this day, 9 years later, the Air Force has not taken any position one way or another. After 80 years of bald-faced lying and deception, they still remain mum. And they're the people in charge of our skies, supposedly, right?
Chris, haven't heard from you very much tonight.
Popcorn and soda. Anyways, here's the one thing that I think we got to realize. And going by what Don's first talk about Benowitz and Doty and everything. Intelligence officers are not law enforcement officers. They don't play by the same rules. They commit crimes. They're allowed to commit crimes. They are tasked to either get secrets or save secrets. And there's no Marcus of Queensberry rules. So what they do is not what we think that they should be doing. They have a different set of standards. I former law enforcement, I knew I had to play by these rules. I was engaged in stuff, but I can't go outside the box. Intelligence officers can go outside the box. They can lie. They can steal. They can blackmail. They can do all kinds of things, honey traps, everything else to steal secrets, bribe them, anything else. And that's what we have to understand about what's going on within our government, because and I'm totally convinced now after doing some research, there's a rogue element within the intelligence community that is fighting to keep this thing closed. And they will do anything. And allegedly even up to the point of trying to kill people or have killed people. Now, can I prove that? No. But have I listened to people who have been in the know who said, hey, this is what's happened to me? Well, yeah. So that's the first thing. Second thing, what Don was talking about Bigfoot and stuff. There's always been talk about Bigfoot being either interdimensional or coming off of crafts. So that doesn't surprise me about that story. I've heard that story, and I've heard other stories about Bigfoot coming out of portals and things of that nature. My honest opinion is that Bigfoot was put here by either interdimensional or an extraterrestrial race to either guard them, assist them in whatever they have to do. Because there's not many of. I mean, if you look at the whole totality of the whole United States and say, "Hey, how many sightings?" We think there's a lot, but there's really not that many sightings compared to the vast area of the United States. So, I mean, we don't have Bigfoot walking down Los Angeles Boulevard. They're kept really.
Have you been to LA recently?
No, I have not, but I won't call him Bigfoot. I've actually seen things worse than Bigfoot. Okay, so let's just say that we're going a couple of steps lower than Bigfoot when we come to LA Boulevard and stuff. So this doesn't surprise me as far as Bigfoot, but I think people are going to have to start wrapping their heads around the idea that we're fighting. The government is fighting among themselves, and we don't know who's going to win this.
I agree, Chris. Let me throw a couple things out there, try to tie in Decker remarks that Padre's made and what you've made, Chris. As most people know that have seen me or watched the show, I don't need the government to tell me what I believe. It's just that simple. My mind, my heart's been made up on this subject and many other subjects for a long time. Why do I do these shows? Why do I listen to shows? Why do I research it? Well, I do like to get together with you guys and talk about this. I do think a lot of people, I've met a lot of nice, really nice people in the audience over the years that have corresponded, and engage in this. And I think it's a really important part of how I live life, that I want to do this kind of stuff. I try not to be one of those agents that's causing more churn, because I think you're right, Don. I mean, a lot of this is done with churn. But I go back to my earlier remark. If the Trump administration came out with a digest on what you're going to get, people would be saying, Orange Man bad, Trump bad. He's directing you in a direction. It false prophet. The whole routine, the whole nonsense will go. And if it goes the other direction, well, you're dumping it, and why are you dumping it? Well, we are a dumbed down society. We're not going to look at our stuff and at things ourselves and have any kind of logic on that. Many people just don't. They want stuff in 2-3 minute TikToks. And please keep watching our TikToks. They're off the scale. I appreciate everybody that checks out our shorts on TikTok. And I'm not trying to be insulting, but we have allowed ourselves to become homogenized on this, that we aren't going to think for ourselves. So all that together, I think more than any other big piece to this, we're at the precipice, and I believe the Padre used the expression about the first pangs of childbirth. We're at the precipice of a big change that's coming on. And I was an Intel guy, and I wasn't stealing secrets, and I wasn't protecting secrets. I was in the part of Intel where I was trying to gather the information to prepare for missions and to know where the enemy had put things down and what the enemy was up to, or what the pattern of life on the last part of my life of what people that were good people that we were tracking down. So that was my version of Intel. I understand exactly what you're talking about, Chris. The agents, the folks that are there that are involved in espionage activities or counterintelligence activities. And you're right, they don't operate under the same rules. They operate under a different set, and sometimes they are, they're caught up in that. But my drive on this is that we need to look at all the signs around it. We have representatives at the federal level talking about the precipice of new energy. And we have just gone through a revelation of leadership that has now put pretty much the hands around the world oil supply. Okay, it's under a form of control. There's a big meeting that's going to happen in about, looking at the clock, President arrives in about 10 hours, 10 more hours, he arrives in China to talk to Xi Jinping. One of my favorite people, as you all know how much I love the PRC and the PRC government and friggin' communists that they are. So that meeting may be setting down what's going to come up. Are we heading to, on the reveal, on disclosure, part of it's going to be we're transitioning off oil. But we have to do it in a way that does not completely wreck the world economy. And we can't have a rogue nation for 47 years that's talked about death to everybody around them with nukes lobbing them all over Europe and the Pacific. Can't do it. So these are the steps that are taken. These are the controls that are put in place. And I think you go all the way back to the first article that we talked about, the first piece. Maybe some of that advanced aircraft that some of the representatives are alluding to, and not being called out by the Secretary of War that they have given up information in a classified briefing. Maybe that all fits. In my mind, it does. Very little surprises me. I don't need the government to tell me what I believe, what I know. And most of this all fits. But I have a reptilian brain. I've shared that with all of you at different times, how I look at stuff like that. And it has served me well.
Well, can I just say this, Commander?
Absolutely.
What use or good is it being the 900-pound gorilla in the room unless you remind everybody once in a while that you are the 900-pound gorilla in the room?
I think the answer to that question is, Don, in the past when we played those tit-for-tat games, you're absolutely right. You know, the little nonsense games and the spy versus spy Mad Magazine playbook. And I was part of all that in the late 80s when I first entered the military. That was the playbook, you know, the games that we played back and forth. I think one of the more unsettling things on the world stage, and it's for good, happens to be this president. I said it in his first administration. If we were ever going to get any form of disclosure, it was going to be him. He's the only person that would do it because he's not an insider. And that's why they have tried to kill him. That's why they've tried to imprison him. That's why they have tried to break him. And he seems, the more that you do it, he's like flubber. You get more out of him than what you put into him. And he keeps bouncing and coming back and hitting you and throwing it up there. Love him, hate him. You have to step back and say, the amount of things that have gone on and the kinds of things that have happened are nothing less than amazing. And I think that is what Chris and all of you have said about the different elements that don't see themselves as answering to anyone, sees themselves as the self-appointed arbiters of what we're going to do, have crapped all over our Constitution. And I think that's why these things are happening the way they're happening. But you're right. I don't think he's flexing muscle, though, in a way to show somebody that what we're capable of. I think it is a much more in-depth programmatic display with results that are telling people, knock it off. Venezuela, incredible how that thing went off. We didn't use stealth helicopters, stealth airplanes for the most part. We were buzzing through the skies, did the whole thing, knocked it off, and good old-fashioned intel spies, people that we had bought off on the inside said, yeah, he's heading to the closet with the big vault door on it. You need to get here. And bingo, bango, they got it. And then he's in Brooklyn enjoying coffee at the bodega up there overlooking Manhattan South. So, I mean, you got to step back and look at it. Look at the speed, the pace this is going. And I look at that with these disclosure pieces coming out and the reports about what's coming next. To me, it all fits. It fits nicely. And when we kind of roll towards the end of this, I wanted to go to Chris because I want Chris to go through his update and his discussion on those that have been murdered, those that have been abducted, and the latest that he's kind of drawn out of that. But I'll swing it back around everything with everybody. Back to you, Don.
I've got nothing else right now.
All right. Don's giving me the drop the mic. Write that one down because that doesn't happen often. Padre?
You know, listening to you talk, Commander, raised some interesting thoughts in my mind. You know, people are worried about how any disclosure is going to impact religious people. I was thinking to myself as you were talking about if we were to suddenly disclose an energy source that was not dependent on fossil fuel, that could power anything for an unlimited amount of time, the tremendous upheaval that would happen in the world just from the energy side. You know, overnight, oil companies are bankrupt.
I don't agree. We're going to go all electric. You still need all that same oil to do the lubrication. I mean, that's the point. We have all these cataclysmic things that come out. How we orderly transition to that, absolutely, it's going to be a mess because entrenched industries do not want to give up what they have. They don't want to restart.
Mm-hmm.
I get that.
But I guess what I'm saying is maybe that was hyperbole, go bankrupt. The demand for the quantity of oil that's been consumed is going to be greatly reduced. We'll always need to put grease on something that squeaks. But at the same time, not having to have power plants. Everybody's got the Mr. Fusion on the car. You know, you drop your banana peel in there and you're good to go for a week. You know, maybe you've got one in your backyard and that powers your house for the next year. And so we could be on the cusp of something wonderful. But when people feel threatened, and you guys are law enforcement, military, you understand this. When people feel threatened and they feel that their world is collapsing, they get like a wounded animal in a corner and they lash out. And
if they have nukes, will they go along with the plan, as Decker says, that the 900-pound gorilla, which happens to have golden hair, apparently, is dishing out?
Yeah,
will they go along with it? How do you force them not to make that move?
But also what happens to UAE, Dubai, Saudi Arabia, these nations who it's oil or nothing, they're the ones who are suddenly going to have to find a way to support the lavish lifestyles or undergo some kind of a revolt. And revolts in that part of the country don't usually go very well.
Name a part of the world where revolts go well. I want to hear that.
13
colonies. I'm just not going to let my Arab brothers take the hit here. Okay? I'm of Irish extraction. Okay. The Irish could give some really good rules to people that are Christian on both sides of it, what they did to each other since the time of the Troubles in the 20s. My Lord God, you've got to be kidding me. And we're going to throw stones at Arabs or anybody else? Sorry, I can't let that one fly.
Well, I'm sorry. I had to pick an example of.
No, I understand the point that you're making. And you see that with the Crown Prince trying to diversify what they're doing, you know, to get them into other areas while they have wealth and to develop that, what they want to go forward with. And it's a slow process. I see all that. I think it's a valid concern. But I don't think it's any different than if you tell we're not going to need to make internal combustion. We are going to go to electric vehicles because we're going to have unlimited electrical power generation that's going to come out.
Yeah.
I can you imagine if somebody could do that between now and the midterms? If they made that come out, maybe this has a feed to what's going into the midterms.
Well, we need it for AI research.
For AI research so that the AI can control us, because that's the new religion. AI is the new religion, and it creates its own hierarchy. My point, Detroit or Tennessee, Indiana, Ohio, where all these diversified plants are now, how quick are they going to be able to go over? All that's going to be upheaval. But if you tell people what's coming and why, how it's coming, how it's dosed out, maybe it works. It's going to be childbirth. I've been to a few of them. Generally, they're pretty intense.
Yeah. And what comes out in the end is good.
Yes. I agree.
It's just it's like the Band-Aid. Do you want it to peel off slowly, or do you want to just rip it off? Yeah. I'm a rip-off guy.
Of Band-Aids, not a rip-off guy like in, ripping people off.
No,
I just want to make sure,
not steel. I live
I
by
want to
that.
make sure we're clear for everybody who listens to the show that, we don't have a pastor who's talking about he's a rip-off guy. That has had some bad history. Okay, I'm just saying. Okay, just saying.
Put your hand on the player.
First, let me tell you, Pastor, the guy that married me, my priest is in jail. So I mean, it can happen. Not to you, mind you, but it can happen. He was actually, when he married us, he was suspended, and we didn't know it. So I don't even know if I'm married legally.
I can help you with that.
I better not talk too loud. I might be able to leave my wife and not have to worry about any alimony.
I'm going to have to write a few things down here, just a few notes while you're talking.
Okay, so now you're going to act like an intelligence officer and going to blackmail me. But the truth is, here's my take on what I've been saying, and I might be drifting off a little bit. I'm going to try to stay. First of all, the 900-pound gorilla with blonde hair is pretty fed up with a lot of places in the world. Not so much the Middle East as he is with Europe. Because, he's saying, wait a minute. We got all our troops in Germany, and we're defending Germany against Russia, but Germany's buying oil from Russia. That don't fly with him. Then when he says, hey, you guys get most of your oil from the Straits of Hormuz, but not one of you pussies would ever come down and bring a battleship or something of that nature.
We don't have any battleships. You can't bring something. Come on.
I'm not a Navy guy. I'm a Marine guy. I had my crayons before we had the show. So anyways, they don't come
color
down.
flavor did you have tonight, Chris?
I have green with envy. Anyways, so these guys come down and they don't say, when the war is over, we'll bring our ships down so we can say, hey, we helped you. And Trump knows that's garbage. And so I think he's saying, listen, you need to buy your oil from us because we have a lot of oil. But on the same token, I think you're going to see once we get through fusion and be able to make fusion safe, there's your electricity at a low price because you can pop up all these fusion centers.
What most of us in this audience are paying in the United States for electricity right now, we should almost all have a fusion generator sent to us by the time we're done.
Guess who was just hired and is now working on fusion?
But the thing is,
Brown?
Brandenburg.
Oh,
excellent.
But here's the thing. When it comes to technology for electricity, we're kind of a little archaic. We need to bring it to fusion. And if we do that, we can put plants all over the United States and the cost of electricity will go down because fusion plants can make a lot of electricity at a very safe. That's the biggest thing. Oh my God, it's going to wreck the environment if we put these nuclear plants up because fission has electricity. And what happens if one of them fails and we have a meltdown? Doesn't happen with fusion, for what I've been told.
So you can still have problems with fusion. The big difference is, well, we're really getting off subject here, Chris, and we're cutting into your time. But we have aircraft carriers that have gone for multiple decades now, nuke submarines for multiple decades that make all kinds of electricity, and they're not big reactors.
No.
The problem is we have the same friggin' grid lines that we put up basically in the 20s and 30s. We pump electricity and we lose 38% of it.
Archaic.
It's archaic. And
Yeah,
every politician, with the exception of this one that has shown up, and he doesn't want to sell our oil to the Middle East. He wants the Middle East to sell the oil and go clean up their act, not oppress your people and go build stuff, not war. But
a UAP question tied to what you're saying. Why is it that we see so many UAP hovering above power lines?
Well,
I mean, I've written numerous reports. Are they needing electricity?
They might.
And
Tapping power, yes. All the way back to John Fuller. John 4 in the
we've
60s.
run out of
same
time to
thing with
get
water.
to the other item I wanted to bring up tonight, and we'll do it in the future because I think it's a good case to bring up for a lot of reasons. To talk about that, why do we have so many UAPs that went to nuke facilities
Yes.
and seem to power down nuke facilities? And I've never read any of those classified reports, so please don't screw up the computer. It's screwed up here enough on its own, NSA and the rest of you. Dan has lots of time in his hands. He's recovering. You can go hit the Padre up again. You already have his codes, apparently.
But also you want to bring in water. We've have a lot of sightings over water and funnels of water going up to crafts. And it's been talked about that you could get great power by separating oxygen from hydrogen and stuff. And a lot of scientists have turned around and says, hey, that's a possibility that they're using our planet as a gas station with water because we have an abundance of water. So you could talk about
airships and hydrogen don't mix well. Oh, the humanity. Does anyone remember that?
All right, Mr. Hindenburg. Any more German references tonight? I'm gonna lose my mind. We've really beat the old Das Boot here on the Germans and their
Nine.
Padre, you could turn hydrogen into helium. This is what I've been told by scientists. It takes a tremendous amount of power to turn hydrogen into helium. Well, listen, I'm just going by. Do I look like a freaking scientist? Okay. No, Chris, we're not even sure you're married. Hey, what's the story? We think you may have been living in sin for decades.
Yeah, are you really married, Chris? I mean, come on.
You've been telling people you're a married guy.
I will tell you this. Look, you gotta. Everybody has a different opinion. Scientists, doctors, whatever. I mean, you can go to 5 different people and get 5 different answers. But you got to go try to find the answers. And then you put the answers out there and you debate it like we do on this show. So I'm not afraid to put something out there and have you challenge it. That's fine. But what I'm saying to you is that there's people talking about this and we have to respect that. And even though we don't agree with it, we may not say it's right. We may say it's garbage. It's still out there.
All right. If you want me to respect it a little bit more out of the gate, don't do it in your car. All right. If you're a professional member of the government or the military, don't be doing crap in the car. Don't be doing the little, like you're trying to sell me cosmetics or something that's going to cleanse my body from the inside out.
I'll call her tomorrow and tell her to get her act together. I'm sure she'll take my call. And say, hey, Bobit, what the hell is this in the car? Commander's bitching and hollering that you're doing this in the car.
I don't think if you're going to speak, if you're going to talk to the representative on my behalf, I don't want the B word used in the discussion because I don't want any kind of problem there.
All right, but I mean, every congressperson we have a problem. I mean, Burchett has had it. We got a problem with him. We got a problem with
Again, I have to throw the footnote. They're not Congress people. They're representatives or they're senators. The friggin' body is the Congress.
All right, they're representatives. So we screw around with
representative screwing around. Newsflash? Is that what you were going through there?
I got to tell you, that wouldn't be probably the next thing to stop disclosure is that, to talk about that.
I'm waiting for the disclosure pictures of somebody who used to be a representative from California, from Don State, involved sexually with ETs. That's going to show up. That's coming. No, we're running out of time on the show. I'm jumping in there. I'm getting my hands on the handlebars. I'm steering a little bit here. I can't help myself.
Now, I will tell you, I've had reports of people having sexual encounters with reptilians.
Oh, that's just sick.
Well, what do you want from me? I'm just telling you, this is what they report. Hey, what can I tell you?
But supposedly the reptilians can shape change. And maybe you get a voluptuous
I dated a few women in the past that could shape change. I'm going to say that I can add some empirical evidence that has happened.
I can't believe where we're going with this.
Hey, you boys want to play in the big leagues? I'm bringing the bat. Okay, I'm just telling you.
Okay,
that's okay. Right. I got a good mitt.
I've been to 2 goat ropings and 1 county fair, Commander. So, you know,
So who's pitching and receiving here? Are you pitching?
you ain't got no cherry on this side of the
Well,
fence.
half my ass is gone, so I got to been receiving past this show. I can tell you that.
So
All right,
so-
where are we now?
I can't wait for the shorts that are going to come out of this one. That's going to be extra special. All right, Chris, here's what I suggest.
I'm going to save this for another show.
We're about down to 10 minutes. Why don't you tease us just a little bit? That's a message to our media creative content developer who is probably going to need a raise after this show, trying to come up with the content media management that she's going to have to pull off.
All right, let me talk about it. I get this quick because we're running short of time.
Just take us for the last few minutes. Take us to the end of the show. Kind of set it up for one.
All right,
next time
I'm going to save the murders for another time, but I'll talk about this blue beam thing. Amanda, let's play Invasion clip 1.
This is queuing up and preparing what is colloquially known. It's not an official document. There are official documents, but for decades it's been known as blue beam, meaning a fake alien invasion, and that's what Dr. Greer and others have been warning about for 30 years as well. This is queuing up.
What if the greatest threat to humanity isn't coming from space, but from a laboratory on Earth? Step plan to fake a global invasion, using high-tech holograms and frequency waves to trick the eyes and the minds of every human on the planet. The technology is ready. The stage is set. When the sky finally speaks, will you believe your eyes?
Now, let me just say that the two guys that were mentioning that, if they said the sky was blue, I'd have to look up, and I'll leave it at that. And stuff. I'm not.
Or at least need a crayon that matched the color of the sky to get yourself straight.
Yeah, that could be and stuff. But there's always been talk about a hologram and either bringing God or Jesus as a one world thing, or a alien invasion to bring the world into a one world order. That's been floating around for years. That's not anything new with Project Blue Beam, been in the books and everything else. So is there something? But here's the other thing that I thought was very interesting about this. And it kind of worried me a little bit, because if this is true, and I got to see if it is, Amanda, I want you to play clip 3 Invasion.
What do you mean Bank of England warned their people to prepare for economic chaos sparked by aliens? What did I miss? The Bank of England says to plan for a financial crisis triggered by aliens. What? I'm sorry. What's the angle here?
All right, can I jump on two things real quick?
Go ahead.
It's going to sound like I'm being a smartass, and I am a little bit. But England is invaded by illegal aliens, and their bank is getting ready to topple. So
Yeah,
I have to throw out the obvious here, just a teensy tiny bit. And of course, you know my love for Mr. Jones. Anytime you flash his face up there, well, you know I'm all ears for his nonsense and his BS machine that's been going on. And I know he's been right. So isn't the broken clock here off the other side of the F-18 twice a day? The broken clock is correct.
Even a squirrel gets a nut or something.
Even a blind squirrel in a raging snowstorm, Christopher, finds a nut.
Yeah, that's
okay?
a nut or whatever and stuff.
What if?
I agree with you.
Here's my what if. What if the Golden Golem, President Trump, knows that Project Beam is on the slate, that the cabal, as I like to refer to them, and this is why he is racing ahead of it to defuse these people before they try to pull this off, because we know he is not for one world government. And Chris, you termed it beautifully. World order isn't world happiness. It isn't world kumbaya. It is
world order.
Yeah. World order. And I know how the order works, and I know I'll be taking the orders in this wonderful, brave new world that we're headed towards. But what if all of this, all the things that have gone on in the last year and a half, is because we're racing against this cataclysm of this false flag invasion display.
Now, let me
Do you really buy into that? Do you actually buy into the fact that there's a cabal in the American government that has that in the plans?
After COVID, and after what I saw happen with COVID, after what I had seen 2 weeks to flatten the friggin' curve, what that turned into, Don, I have to say, I think that there are elements that they don't have very much control.
Do you freaking realize the catastrophic breakdown that would cause
John,
with many of the uneducated? No, I'm talking about gunfights in the streets. I'm talking about people.
You think they
blowing
care,
up buildings.
Don?
You think they give a crap about that? My God, you're in California. Pick your era, pick your year for whatever riot has gone on, and people stood back.
Oh, I've been around a couple of them out here.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Amanda.
You're telling me after COVID and after how that went down on a worldwide scale, that this doesn't have the slightest tinge.
Wait a minute, guys. I want to answer Don's question with a video. Amanda, play clip 2.
Just after midnight, Art Bell would receive what would become the most infamous phone call in the history of Coast to Coast AM. A man's voice, trembling with fear and panic, identified himself as a former Area 51 worker who had been medically discharged only a week earlier. The caller claimed that the so-called aliens were actually extra-dimensional beings secretly contacted years ago. He insisted that they infiltrated the military, especially at Area 51, and that they weren't what they seemed. The caller warned that officials already knew disasters were coming that would wipe out major cities, and instead of stopping them, the plan was to let it happen, since smaller groups of survivors would be easier to control. He hinted at hidden safe zones, but said authorities had no intention of saving anyone. His breathing grew uneven as he whispered that his time was almost up.
They are not what they claim to be. They have infiltrated a lot of aspects of the military establishment, particularly the Area 51. The military, I'm sorry, the government knows about them. They're not doing anything. They are not.
Just as the caller reached the climax of his desperate warning, something unprecedented happened. The phone line cut off mid-sentence, and Art Bell's entire satellite transmission failed, leaving the show in complete dead air for several minutes. This was the first time in Bell's broadcasting career that such a technical failure had occurred.
So I pose that to all you. What if that's true? I'm not saying it is, but what if it's true?
What, that it happened? I mean,
if that is a plan by the cabal, the deep state, you can call it cabal, deep state, whatever you want. Suppose there's a plan to do something of nefarious as that.
Well, is there a plan to mass manipulation and control? No doubt. But when you're talking holograms, and that was the original question.
We have the technology to do it.
No, we don't. And I'm speaking now as a meteorologist. When you understand the power parameters, what you're projecting onto, the variations in the image quality that would be easily disrupted by a flock of birds, localized weather phenomenon, acoustical variations due to atmospheric destiny. If you're going to do something, the power requirements would be, well, it would probably require fusion, and just the logistical element of worldwide holographic.
Can you honestly say the U.S. government doesn't have that? Not civilian, but can you honestly say the U.S. government doesn't have that type of weaponry, doesn't have that type of sophistication? Because you got to remember, they could be 100 years ahead of us in technology, and we wouldn't know it.
Or more.
Or more.
You still can't keep a flock of birds from flying through your hologram.
You don't know what the technology they have to do it. And I can understand your reasoning, but here's what I look at. I look at the technology that we don't know about. And that's the scary part. Commander, what do you think?
I hear you, Chris. I think you provide a good ledge to stand on. I'm with Padre on this, that given the realities as we know them of what's capable, if you're going to do it with something like holograms, I would think it would be difficult. If you're going to do it through some kind of mass psychosis, if you're going to do it through some kind of mental imagery that goes on, or if you're going to stage it in particular areas where you can control it, I do think that technology probably...
Or perhaps mental manipulation.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm talking about, on the psychological point of that.
No, I'm talking about technology.
Right, but I'm talking that technology does something inside your head.
Right.
Or something that is triggered inside your head that, I don't know. We have a pretty clean food system, so it would be hard to, insert kinds of chemicals and things that could be triggered at a later date to cause hallucinations or controlled hallucinations. I can't even imagine how that would happen, since it's practically organic what we're eating, drinking, breathing. Obviously, sarcasm. So yeah, I think it's there. I think it's a possibility there. I think that whatever's on paper, whatever has happened since COVID, and I can't get over when I look back at what that is and how quickly it's been dropped. In all honesty, you talk about forgive and forget. It's unbelievable the level of forgive and forget that's played officially on this. It's just incredible to me. Absolutely incredible.
All right, my question to Don is, if they can make total chaos, if they can do exactly what you said, right, and reduce the masses by murders, everything else, wouldn't that be easier to control? Wouldn't it be able to... Remember, there was a point where people were talking about, with the riots in the street, that people were floating the idea about NATO troops coming into the United States during the Biden administration.
I'll tell you, when I was in Vietnam, right before I was wounded, okay, my mental state was, to put it politely, extraordinarily volatile. And I was geared for damn near anything, anytime, and I was ready to go, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
The closest I ever came to that, again, was during the Rodney King event back in '92, where I did my radio show. Okay, the studio was right next to a business that was hit that night. It was the first time since I had been a badge-carrying law enforcement officer that I was packing everywhere I went. And it wouldn't have taken much, okay, to trigger it. And I don't like that. I never want to be in that position again. But I know that if something like that came up, I'm more than capable of it. If you guys get my underlying meaning.
Absolutely. Well, folks, we're at the limit. The clock has ticked out. The sand has dropped in the hourglass. It's been great being together.
Padres, great having you back.
Great to see you coming back. Decker, always in good form. Chris, try to get the 52 Crayola and really enjoy yourself the next time I see you.
I'm going to try the orange.
Sometime you're going to have to tell me what the connection is between the Marine Corps and crayons, Chris.
I don't know.
And please get married.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you can take care of that between now and the next time we see it. Maybe Amanda had a great idea. She said, let's do an on-air ceremony. We have the Padre. I'll send the flowers. I think we can do something. I think we should really do that.
Yeah. Well, Vicky and I got married on my radio show.
I know. Again, you could be best man and bridesmaid. I think I got this whole thing. I'm a wedding planner. I think I could plan a friggin' wedding.
I can tell you, my wife is saying, don't even think about it. You ain't going anywhere. You're 70 years old. You can't walk
Commander.
Yes, ma'am.
If anyone gets to be bridesmaid, can it at least be me?
Well, yeah. I think the maid of honor should be the other couple got on there. You could be the flower girl.
Oh. Okay.
I will tell you that is a true story. The priest that married me.
I'm saying this is a true wedding plan, and I'm going to take some action over the next couple of weeks while I'm gone to get this thing straightened out.
Ask your soon-to-be bride if she's up for it.
Well, I don't think she's the one that she needs to talk with me. I think that's really how
it's an arranged marriage. It's an arranged marriage.
And I can be the godfather in this whole thing.
I know Vicky would do it in a heartbeat. She'd do it in a heartbeat.
I see. You talk about blue sky and holograms. I got this thing all right here.
my marriage from UFOs. What did that say? Apples, oranges.
We'll get you kids.
Here we are.
Area 51 Resort honeymoon suite. I got this thing all worked out. And I haven't even started thinking. To the greatest audience on the planet. You see Amanda in the middle. Great co-hosts. Thank you so much for listening to us tonight, supporting us. Keep the mail coming. And we'll be with you next week.
I'm not suicidal.
I'm grabbing the ejection seat now.